Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to have panel of discussants who are going to sit here and then give further enumeration to all that we have been discussing since morning. So the first panel discussion is going to be circular economy development through policy, hubs, agencies, and global treaties. I will invite the panelists as well as the moderator, then I'll step down from here. Let me start with the moderator. The moderator of the panel is Mr. Clem Ugorji, consultant and advisor to GPAP. Mr. Clem Ugorji. We have the head sustainable development and cooperation, I think this is. Head sustainable development and brand, Lafarge Africa, Mrs. Titilope Oguntuga. One Lafarge stepped down, another Lafarge is coming up. Thank you. Next is Mr. Oluyomi Banjo. Is an energy and environmental expert for United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. That's Mr. Oluyomi Banjo. Thank you very much. And the last on this list is Professor from University of Lagos, Professor Sunday Adebisi from University of Lagos. For the next 30 minutes, the moderator and the panelists will discuss the topic on the panel discussion 1. Thank you very much.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Permanent Secretary of the Lagos State Ministry of Environment and all officers of the government and the private sector here present. And please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I think today is a very important day in our journey as a country to the circular economy transition. Because what we are having here today, like we've heard, is the first of this event in Africa, and it is great to see that it's not just happening in Nigeria, but it's happening in Lagos as well. And for me, I think the panel conversation that we have today has been properly set as a matter of stage by the presentation by Lafarge. Because one thing that we must understand is that the circular economy is not a talk show, it's not an abstract concept, it's about practical solutions to real life problems that we're all confronted with, and that is the problem of pollution in our environment. And so the conversation of this panel today is to look at what are some of the practical measures that we can take as a country to move forward on this, move forward beyond the talk shows that we have always had, move forward beyond developing plans to actually doing things on ground that can enable us to achieve that. And I think the issue of circular economy has been properly defined. So really, we are not going to waste time talking about what is circular economy. But I think it's important to just say that two things are critical. One, it's about ensuring that we eliminate wasteful production and wasteful consumption. And then the second thing is also ensuring that the unavoidable waste materials that come as a result of production and consumption are transformed into new materials that can become valuable in our society. So if we take out all the grammar and all of the syntax and everything, this is really what the circular economy is all about. And I think that as a country, we've started this journey about 10 years ago, and we have what we call the National Circular Economy Program. We have the National Circular Economy Working Group, and expectedly, the Lagos State government is also leading this among the subnational level with what we call the Lagos Circular Economy Program, and of course, the Lagos Circular Economy Hotspot that we have here. So I think the stage has been set for action. But I think, we've had this conversation for too long, and the question is that we need to begin to take action in order to concretize the benefits of the circular economy. But then we can't talk about the circular economy without regulations and policies, because we need regulations, we need policies to be able to set the stage and also define the roadmap and also, pace the progress of our development. We also need to create markets. We also need to ensure that there is innovation. What can we do with the waste that we generate from every aspect of the economy? So we need to be able to talk about innovation. We need also to be able to talk about working together collaboratively across sectors, because a silo mentality cannot deliver the circular economy. So at the national level, at the state level, at the local government level, there has to be interaction between governments. There has to be interaction between government and other sectors of the economy. And we also need to understand that there is need for financing, because that is where the rubber meets the road. We can do all the plans that we like, but if we are not able to develop a sustainable financing strategy, we can't deliver on the circular economy. And so I think all of these are the things that the panel is going to be looking at today and giving us perspectives on how can we deliver on some of these points that we've talked about. Incidentally, our panel was originally structured for 1 hour, and now we've been cut to 30 minutes. So you're going to have a rapid-fire version of the panel that we had earlier intended to bring to you. And at that point, I think I'd like to give my panel members an opportunity to self-introduce themselves and give us like a 2-minute talk as to the credentials of circular economy for their respective organizations. So I think conventional wisdom demands that we start from the lady. And so I'd like to call on Ms. Titilope Oguntuga to please introduce herself and say a few things. I know we've already heard about Lafarge, so perhaps you might want to skip that, but feel free to give us whatever other additional details you have.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. My name is Titilope Oguntuga. I head Sustainable Development at Lafarge, and I drive the ESG ambitions of my organization. In 2022, and just to further demonstrate what Lafarge does in terms of circular economy, we co-processed over 123,000 tons of waste in our cement plants across Nigeria. And for us, this is just the starting point. I know that we've set the tone for circular economy today, but again, it's important that we know that this is a journey that is worth taking, because the future that we are looking at is a future that is depleted with resources. We do not have those resources anymore. And so these conversations today is not just for us to talk about it, but to also inspire and steer action for us to do things more deliberately to ensure we have a safer planet and we are growing economies that our future generations can inherit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we move on to Professor Sunday Adebisi.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Sunday Adebisi. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship, Corp, and strategic management, and the director of entrepreneurship and skill development center, University of Lagos. I'm equally the occupied professor of Dr. Mike Adenuga Professorial Chair in entrepreneurial studies. In University of Lagos, we have 67,000 students, and when the entire campus is filled up, we are about 85 to 90,000 people every day. You can imagine the kind of waste that will be generated by these people that will live, consistently at a time when we have our students there for like 4 months. We're very, very concerned too about how we manage our waste in the University of Lagos. And there have been a lot of innovative ideas coming from our students from different departments, in playing in the circular economy. So I will be here to look at the possibility of us getting job created from what we are discussing today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And then we move on to Oluyomi Banjo of UNIDO.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oluyomi Banjo, the National Program Coordinator, Energy and Environment for UNIDO Regional Office, Nigeria and ECOWAS. So UNIDO is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and it's a specialized United Nations agency to promote industrialization in developing countries and economies in transition. So what have we done on circular economy? One, we supported the government of Nigeria to develop the national policy on solid waste management. Two, we supported the government of Nigeria to develop the national policy on plastics waste management. Three, we supported the government of Nigeria to develop the first assessment on plastics value chain and sustainable and alternatives to plastics. Four, we are presently cooperating with the government of Nigeria, Lagos State, Federal Capital Territory, and the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance, FIBRA, on a full-size project on plastics value chain with the support of the government of Japan. Five, we are presently cooperating with the government of Nigeria through the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, the Rural Electrification Agency, and an innovation hub, which the headquarters is in Lagos here, co-creation hub, but it's Nigerian owned, but with the presence in quite a number of countries in Africa, to run what we called Global Clean Tech Innovation Program, whereby one of the sectors we are looking at is circular economy in the environment sector. Six, we supported the government of Nigeria to develop, to institutionalize the extended producer responsibility for the electrical and electronic waste sector. And seven, I will stop at this, even though there is more, is that we are presently working with the EPR on the food and beverage sector. And maybe because Clem is here, it's also good that I mentioned that we are presently in discussion with World Economic Forum, which Clem is involved in, on a plastic trade assessment for Nigeria. Thank you. I stop here.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished panelists. I think that we have what it takes to do justice to the topic today. The first practical issue that we want to look at is the issue of creating markets for circular economy products. I mean, we've seen so many recycled products that have been developed in the country, but still many of them at a very small scale, micro scale, and most of these recyclers and artisan producers aren't making much progress in terms of expanding on their products. So the question is, how can we ensure that our domestic market becomes a place where recycled products can thrive? And it's only when we create markets that we can generate demand. And when we can generate demand for this kind of products, then of course, the waste products, can actually be in demand, and we can hope to eliminate waste pollution in our society. And there is a very important role for regulation to play in this aspect. And so I wanted to check with Ms. Oguntuga as to what kind of regulations will Nigeria need to be able to make progress in this area, and what are the current realities that we see within the society.
Interesting about regulations, but I'd first like to provide a bit of context. The Circularity Gap Report 2023 reveals that about only 7.2% of the global economy is circular. What that means is that there's a lot of work for us all to do. Private sector, public sector, civil societies, even individuals, we all have a role to play. But let's talk about the regulations. Regulations provide that framework for us to make adaptations, adopt, and even in very severe cases, also comply with what the national agenda is. And I want to believe that this conversation today is setting the tone for us to develop a strengthened national agenda for circular economy. Now, given our current realities, what regulation will do for us is three-pronged. It will help us focus on social impact, it will help us deal with environmental issues, and more importantly, it will help us to create new economies that we all can thrive in. We understand that SMEs or MSMEs are the nucleus of economic growth in every nation. So regulations will provide that pedestal for MSMEs to grow, to thrive, and to continue to create businesses that are sustainable on the long run. Now, speaking to the type of regulations that we need, we have existing regulations, and it's not like we don't have them. We have policies, we have frameworks, but how can we bring these things to the advantage or to help us accelerate, circular economy as an agenda in Nigeria? One is we need to begin to consider, the ease of doing business, not just for bigger organizations, but the people across this value chain, the people across this ecosystem. That is very important. We understand the role of funding, we understand the role of, support from the government. We also understand the role from all the stakeholder groups. We need to galvanize all these efforts to ensure that certain things are working along the right lines. And I'd like to cite the example of Dubai. From January 2024, single-use plastics will be banned. What that means is that the government will be supporting, and even other stakeholders will be supporting businesses who have a foundation in single-use plastics to eradicate or eliminate single-use plastics by 2024. That is one action that we all need to begin to consider. In terms of regulations and also our current realities, what are the other things that we need to begin to explore? We need to begin to drive value across the value chain in a manner that we are able to share best practices. Regulations can help support in this regard because we are developing frameworks that will support, the achievement of our long-term agenda. Two more things that I'd like to share with us. One is, how are we strengthening diplomatic ties? The European Union, for example, has given us a very practical demonstration of what the ambitions around, circular economy is. How can we leverage all of those, diplomatic ties to strengthen also our own agenda here in Nigeria? And then the second is trade ties. Clem mentioned earlier around creating visible markets, creating viable markets. How do we strengthen, trade ties to ensure that it creates opportunities for these businesses to thrive? The African Continental Free Trade Agreement, for example, is one opportunity that we may need to go back to look into to say, how do we bring circular economy principles embedded in this agreement? And to wrap it up, we all know about the executive orders. We have so many executive orders in Nigeria. What about an executive order for circular economy? I believe that is a fantastic way to go to accelerate that journey towards a successful circular transition in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's great that you mentioned the European Union, and I think, the idea of banning single-use plastics, of course, the jury is still out, whether that is really a very sustainable way for a growing economy to take, and in fact, whether that is actually feasible in the real sense of it. And of course, there is another school of thought that says that rather than banning single-use plastics, that a policy or regulation that mandates the use of recycled plastics for the production of single-use, packaging materials may be a better alternative. Of course, there are debates for and against all of that, and it will be great to check on Prof. Professor Adebisi, what perspective would you have on that, the banning of single-use plastics versus turning it around, to ensure that single-use plastics are made out of recycled plastics? What would be your perspective?
Thank you very much. I like from the point where you are addressing it, because We have a peculiarity in Africa that it may be very difficult for us to run as fast as many developed, countries are working. So, single-use plastic, if we say we are going to go for outright banning in Africa, in Nigeria, it may really, really cause some kind of pains like we are seeing now, with fuel subsidy. So what we need to do is how can we tamper with the orientation of the people now to begin to know that as long as I hold this plastic in my hand, I think twice before I dispose it anyhow. That's the first thing that just needs to happen. We need to all begin to develop the culture that will tell us that once you hold this, what do I do with it? How do I dispose it? What is my responsibility as an individual? How do I ensure the fact that I put it in a place that another person can pick it and reuse it and recycle it? That is very important. If we can achieve that, if you can support with a kind of a regulation that that encourages, that gives a kind of incentive to individuals, to homes to do that, is going to be very fine. Like I was putting down in this place that NESRA needs to do a good job in this area. You see, when we talk about policy, there are already 35 policies already with NESRA, 35 fantastic policies. If we ask many people in the audience, some of us will not even know any of those policies. So the implication is the fact that it's like Dora Akuyele, then Professor Dora Akuyele. NAFDAC has been in existence, but so many of us, we don't even know what it's talking about. But when she came on board, she made us to realize what the policies are, and she was ready to implement the policies. And every home, every household, everybody understood how you need to guide yourself, how you need to look at drugs before you take it, and how you need to cry out when anybody is producing, fake drug. And at the end of the day, it's been a fantastic thing. So I would want NESRA too to look at how, they can support for the implementation of these 35, policies. And that single-use plus how you can begin now to encourage household. We've started doing that at the University of Lagos. Maybe I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
For us to move on well on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that's a great place to segue to my next question around the issue of innovation. And of course, what roles, can hubs play? I mean, we've seen that in the finance sector and in the ICT sector, tech hubs, have been a great, driver of innovation. And so as we look at what can we do with plastic waste, what can we do with other forms of waste, what is the role, for this kind of hubs, in a country like Nigeria in terms of helping us to repurpose these materials for some other productive uses? And it's great to hear from you in the academia. I believe that UNILAG itself, should be in the lead.
Thank you very much for coming back to me again. As a matter of fact, if we want to make our mark in this nation, this is the way to go. It is important for us to begin to create circular economy hubs where you have the density of youth population. This is very important. When you look at the African Circular Economy Alliance, it was formed, Nigeria joined in 2021 with South Africa and Rwanda, signed that. And when you look at it, it was formed, it was really based on bringing or ensuring that you develop the economy potential that comes to circular economy. And there were 5 areas of focus. And the 5 areas of focus was packaging, food system, built environment, electronics, and fashion and textile. Now, we're supposed to be throwing up hackathon every now and then in these areas. We're supposed to look at, like University of Lagos, the extended producer, responsibilities. Those guys that are in this space, like Lafarge and all of them, they're supposed to have a pool of fund that is tailored towards hackathon in each of these areas. Where you come to University of Lagos to looking for new solution on managing, household waste. Some of our students have come up with biogas, the waste from Yamoria that sell food and all of those, compress it, put it together and generate gas from it, and they make presentation of such in my center. And we look at some of those things and look at all the areas, how we can scale some of the things that they are doing. So we need to throw hackathon in this area. We need to be purposeful about it. We need to work with students, work with their supervisors in engineering, in sciences, so that they can begin to come up with solutions, because they themselves need to create the job they are going to do. Because the job, as we speak now, as at last month, we have 45% youth unemployment in Nigeria from 130 million youth. So, when you look at 45% of 130 million youth in Nigeria, you understand what that is. If they begin to, before they leave campus, which we're doing in our innovation center, that we want you to create a business before you get out, and the waste, the waste arena, in the time of the circularity of all these things, can give bigger opportunity.
Absolutely.
But they need the kind of fund, they need the encouragement, they need to see that this thing will be off-taken if they do it. So I think that is the way to go.
Thank you so much. Of course, we know that all of these things cannot happen in isolation, like we say. It's not something that any particular sector can do alone. And circular economy transition is also not even something that any one country can do in isolation, of other countries around. And I think that will be a great way to get the perspectives of the United Nations to say, what role will collaboration play? And collaboration both at the local level and, of course, at the regional level and, at the global level. And, I think an important tool in that regard would things like the treaties that we have. We know there's this global UN Global Plastics Treaty that is coming up. So what's the role of those kind of treaties, and what's the role of that collaboration for a country in Nigeria's situation?
Thank you. Firstly, I've been seeing countries, developing initiatives and leading on circular economy. But hardly do you see regional government, states. So I think this is what makes Lagos special in this case. And please, can we give Lagos a round of applause for doing this? Because for a state to take the initiative to take control of a program that is usually led by a country, then yes, it shows some level of capacity about that state and that country. Also, if I can ask, how many of us know that the draft regulation for Nigeria's plastics waste management is out? So it came out yesterday. Please, it would be good you have a look at it. We are all stakeholders in this room. Thirdly, so the governance of circular economy globally. There are different tools that are being used. Before now, it was mainly centered around the Basel Convention on transboundary movement of hazardous waste. But now, the world is beginning to look at how can we separate circular economy from issues of transboundary movement. And the first one that is coming out is on plastics, which it was agreed at UNIA 5, that's the United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi, that the world should come together to develop a global treaty on plastics waste management, with circular economy as a strong tool. Now, we've had 2 intergovernmental negotiation committee meetings, one held at Uruguay and the other held in Paris. The third one, 5 is to be held before the consideration of a fully developed convention comes into place. The third one will be held November this year at Nairobi. And what does this tell us? The moment this convention comes into place and Nigeria becomes a signatory and goes ahead to ratify, then Nigeria is under the obligations of this treaty, which is why Nigeria must be very much present during the negotiation. So that is the start of collaboration. Because when Nigeria becomes an obligation for Nigeria, then Nigeria has to also look at, so now Nigeria has policies, regulations, and other things. at that time, it would have to also, in one way or the other, align to what the world is doing. And I think that is where collaborations also with international organizations comes in. Because one of the major things we bring to the table is to be able to support the country to meet international best practice. So Nigeria has participated in the 2 internegotiation committees. For example, Nigeria was vocal at the last one, also advocating for special financing under that global treaty. The country has to look at quite a number of things. Research and development, which my colleague here from UNILAG has mentioned, awareness and education. We are sitting here, but many people outside still don't know what we are talking about. Technologies. So what type of technologies are you going to adopt? Because there are peculiarities in Nigeria. Is Nigeria producing many of these products that we are talking about? The answer is no. So if you are not producing, if you are importing, using and managing, what type of technologies do you use? So I'll stop here because of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are really out of time. And so just to round up, I'd like my panelists to leave the audience with one statement that they would like people to go away with and to ring in their heads as an action point for each person. And maybe I would like to start.
Sustainable consumption does not end with, using a product or, an item. Sustainable consumption ends when we have disposed properly. And it's important that we all see ourselves as ambassadors for circular economy.
Thank you.
If each and every one of us would do things differently, I'm sure we would move the needle an inch, and in the next 5 to 10 years, we will be able to see visible impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Been very generous with your statements. Prof?
Thank you very much.
I think 30 seconds.
We need to reverse the order. If we're generating 32 million tons of waste in Nigeria, and less than 30% of such is recycled, I think in the next 5 years, I'm looking at this gathering, that we're reversing it to be 70-30. That is to say, we are now recycling 70%, and we are now thinking of how we move from 17 to 19 in the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would say be educated and be aware on circular economy. But don't just only be educated and be aware. Be involved. What you put on the table may be what may make a difference in the game of play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we should just give a round of applause to the panelists. And just by way of wrap up, I think 3 things, stood out from this conversation today. The first thing is that, to be able to solve the problem of waste and really claim to build a circular economy, we have to be able to build products out of the waste, whether it is agricultural waste, whether it's industrial waste, whether it is plastic waste or whatever it is. We need to be able to create the capacity to transform this waste into materials for other things. The second is that we need to look at our policies and regulations to be able to create a domestic market for these innovations that are coming up so that there can be demand for these products, and therefore these industries can grow to create employment and at the same time also create an off-take capacity for the kind of waste that we want to see out of the environment. And of course, collaboration is key. At the national level, it's important for stakeholders to come together. Government alone cannot create a circular economy. Industry alone cannot create a circular economy. Civil society alone cannot create a circular economy, neither can the informal sector. But everybody working together, holding hands together, reaching consensus and collaborative action can make this work. And so we wish that this country would actually do what needs to be done so that we can become a model in Africa for the circular economy transition. Thank you all very much, and thanks for your attention.
Hello, thank you very much. We'd like the panelists to stay here while the permanent secretary comes to join for a group photograph. Mr. Clem Ugorji is owing me 10 minutes. I don't know how you are going to pay for it. Photographers, please. We're supposed to have a learning lab 1 on financial planning for MSMEs, running concurrently with this panel discussion at the Nile room. I hope that has also been concluded by now. So we go straight to the panel discussion 2, which is going to be on energy and circular economy, the just transition to a circular economy in Nigeria and beyond. And the moderator for this session is Mr. Bode Fadikpe, CEO, Sage Consulting and Communication. Please put your hands together for Mr. Bode Fadikpe, please. The panelists are Mr. Greg Odogu, National Coordinator, Center for Renewable Energy. Mr. Greg Odogu. People call people Odogu. I don't know the meaning, but I'm seeing somebody who bears that name today. Thank you very much. As the National Coordinator, Center for Renewable Energy. Next is Dr. Segun Adaju, CEO, Consistent Energy Limited, and the President is joining virtual. Okay. The next person is going to join virtual is the CEO, Consistent Energy Limited, and the President, Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. I hope we have connected with him. The technical team, have you connected with Mr. Segun Adaju? Okay. The next person is Ms. Sheria Adegbenro, Chief Audit and Compliance, Eco Electricity Distribution Company. Ms. Sheria Adegbenro, thank you very much. I would like to hand over to the moderator. This is for another 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony.
Sorry, I just want to inform us that concurrently we are going to be having Learning Lab 2, Designing Buildings for Circularity. Dr. Mrs. Tenigbade Udu, lecturer at Yaba College of Technology. I don't know where it is holding, probably at the Nile room as well, but that will run concurrently with this as well.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long day, but we'll do our best to make sure that we don't keep you waiting for too long. We have been asked not to stand on existing protocol again, so that we can disrupt the economy and get what we want to get. I'd like to welcome my panelists. And I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves. Like the MC said, somebody is joining us virtually, and that is Dr. Segun Adaju, who is the President, Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. He was supposed to be on this program, but he had to cancel it at the last minute because there is okay, he's online already. Online. Thank you very much, yes. So, Dr. Adaju, you are welcome. Thank you for making out time to join this program. The panelists on my left, would you like to introduce yourself? Please put on the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please permit me to stand on existing protocol. I'll be representing the Chief Audit and Compliance Officer, Mrs. Sheria Adegbenro, Eco Electricity Distribution Company, Lagos.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, invited guests. My name is Greg Odogu. I am the National Coordinator, Center for Renewable Energy. It's a non-governmental advocacy center in Nigeria, based in Abuja. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The topic we are dealing with for this panel session is energy and circular economy, the just transition to a circular economy in Nigeria and beyond. I would have loved to start with Mercy, but I also know of a fact that Greg is a subject matter expert, so I would like to ask him to set the ball rolling.
Well, today we are here for a very important discussion because whenever there is a new technology or a new lifestyle in society, it puts some people out of job. So, for instance, when the oil industry came, the people that were using kerosene and the people that were using coal and horses, animals to travel, they were out of business. And when the digital economy came, people started using computers, and then the typists, those women that used to type with typewriter, they were out of job. But now we are talking about something that is more global, more impactful because of the impact of climate change, which is a circular economy, and it affects every part of society. Because of this, it's going to have impact on society too. So that's why we are talking about just transition. Just transition is a new concept that brings everybody together in fairness and equity, justice for all, in transiting to a future that is more sustainable and guarantees the development of the whole society, which is in line with one of the SDG goals that is talking about inclusion and peaceful societies. So when circular economy, it's like we are dealing with two issues, energy and circular economy on one hand, then the aspect of that provision of energy which carries everybody along. That is just transition.
Okay, thank you very much. I will still get back to some of the issues that you have raised because I'm concerned about what those who are likely to need to reskill, what is their fate, what is the system going to do to assist them to get to that point. But before I come back to you, let me get back to Mercy Anderson, who is standing in for the MD of a co-electricity distribution company, which I'm sure most of us who are gathered here take power from them. Now, in terms of renewable energy, and I'll get to Dr. Adaju because, again, he's a subject matter expert. But let me first of all find out from ECO what they are doing to support their customers, because the bulk of electricity from the grid today is 80-20. In other words, 80 from fossil fuel and then 20%, which is water, from hydro. How is this going to impact on a circular economy vis-a-vis renewable energy and what you are doing for your customer? Mercy, please.
Okay, so in line with the transition and the Electricity Act that was passed by Lagos State, we'll see that Lagos State is tilting towards the circular economy, which is renewable energy. And what that invariably means is they want to explore other forms of energy that is not the fossil, that is not thermal or water. So invariably, what we'd be doing now is to partner with Lagos State, which is ongoing, in terms of, okay, so distribution companies, you are licensed to do this as the sole provider of electricity in Nigeria. So what would you be doing with that? So we'll come in, we'll partner with Lagos State to see how we can support them in other forms of renewable energy. Right now, we are based on, our reach is basically that 80%, where we get our supply from thermal or from gas. Now we are tilting towards the 20%, which is based on hydro. So what that means is we are also doing renewable form of energy from hydro, while focusing on partnering with Lagos State to provide sustainable supply in Lagos State, which is one of the goals of the Electricity Act, which is to provide electricity and also provide clean energy where we come in.
Now, before I go to Dr. Adaju, I'd like to clear something. How will your own current customer mix, particularly your cash cows, how would you be able to hold them in terms of your other sources of energy, renewable especially? Do you think this is likely to create a challenge for you in the market?
No, definitely, I don't think so. So because majority of them will still come to us in the sense that we already, there's a transition plan, and the transition plan is 2060. They didn't set that transition plan to take place in 4 years. They didn't set it to take place in 10 years. They know it's a gradual process, hence why they said renewable energy, they gave us a long term of 2060, meaning that they know that it's a transition. You won't start immediately. You won't get there immediately. You need a whole plan, a whole period to actually get in line with it. So basically, we would be partnering with them again to make sure that those that even rely on the supply is improved and we are able to supply to our customers. Currently, we are partnering. We've even started an embedded generation in one of our sites in Lagos to ensure that if there's no, to ensure that supply moves from time to time within all our customers.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adaju, can I come to you now? Can you hear us?
Yes, please, and I hope you can hear me.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
I know that your forte is renewable energy. Can you walk us through a nexus between renewable energy and circular economy?
Thank you so much. Renewable energy by its nature is regenerative. Let me take a typical example of power from the sun. So it replenishes itself automatically. Okay, so that's one aspect, and it helps, to reduce the pressure that you have on resources. Like if you are using thermal, you are using gas, so you have to go and produce, those gas, and then in the course of production, there are waste materials that are generated. Where renewables, in its nature, is naturally regenerative. That's one. The second is also the fact that renewable energy has also developed capacity to evolve easily into circular economy. And let me give you an example of battery recycling. And I will also mention a few speakers who've spoken today. For example, from Nesrea, there is an Alliance for Responsible Battery Recycling that I'm also one of the directors. Is the PRO that's licensed for battery recycling in Nigeria. So for renewable energy also to thrive, it has to rely on recycling some of the what we call waste in quotes that has become resources now. And that includes batteries, includes even solar panels. A panel has about 25 years lifespan. And you can recycle panels. So that's also another, how would I put it? And another impact between renewables, the nexus between renewables and circular economy. And the third one I will quickly mention is to make reference to what the speaker from Eco Disco mentioned. I was going to make reference to the interconnected mini grid that is developed in Ekpe by one of the members of the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria that I also belong to. Almost 1 megawatt. So what does it do? It will help reduce the energy mix as strongly in favor of gas, which is 80%, and 20% large hydro in Nigeria. So if you now generate energy from natural resources, which is sun, the wind, small flowing river, it reduces the waste that is generated from the other sources. And finally, using Lagos as a typical example, I also have the opportunity. I'm working currently as a consultant with Lagos State government to help it develop its decentralized renewable energy desk funded by the World Bank. And a site like Oluyomi receives averagely about 2 million metric tons of waste every year. And there's a study that's been done in collaboration with UNIDO, Clean Energy, that shows that if you generate energy from Oluyomi alone, it should be able to power almost 5 million inhabitants in a radius of, say, about 5 kilometers to that side. Okay, so if you now, so imagine if you're now generating power from Oluyomi, so it helps to reduce the pressure of the waste that Oluyomi we have on Lagosians, right? So this is one of the few connectors between renewables and circular
Can I
economy.
ask you
Renewable
to
is one of
hold
the
your,
most potent ways.
Can I ask you to hold your thoughts there, sir, because we are pressed for time and I need to clear this fact. Now, I know of a fact that one of the things that renewable energy will help us to do is to reduce carbon emission, or a fundamental reduction in fossil fuel and all of those things around it. But there is also there are about two schools of thought. One is of the view that renewable energy may not be able to catalyze full industrialization. And there is another school of thought that also holds the view that no, renewable energy is the way to go. No matter what it is, it can trigger that industrialization that we require. Can you share your thoughts with us on this issue, what looks like a divided position about whether renewable can catalyze industrialization or whether it does not have the capacity to do so? Can you share your thoughts with us, please?
Thank you so much. And quickly, I'll be straight. I've seen facilities that are powered by renewable energy. You would not even believe.
I mean, taking Alaja, for instance, can renewable energy handle Alaja, Ajaokuta?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely it can. Now, let me break it down. I've seen massive airports, stadiums, powered by renewable energy technology. Okay? So it is possible. For example, there's a Lake Turkana wind farm in Kenya that is almost about 385 megawatts of energy that is generated, daily. So it is possible to use the renewables to power any load that you want. However, there's what we call transition, and there's a base load that is required. So you need a base load, for example, to even produce the equipment, to produce the wind farms, to produce the solar panels, okay? So that base load, most times, experts think that it should rely on existing technology. For example, Nigeria says gas is the transition fuel for Nigeria, meaning that gas should transit us ultimately into renewables. But the ultimate energy that Nigeria should be using, okay, is renewables. So I want to put it to all of us that renewable has the capacity to power any facility that we think of, including where the event is holding right now. I've seen massive hotels that are powered by solar and wind in combination. If you go to Germany, on a day I saw about 20,000 megawatts of energy generated from the wind alone in one day. So, and 20,000 megawatts is more than 4 times what we're generating in Nigeria. So this is my own response.
Thank you very much. I will still get back to you because I want to know what role policy, government can play in helping to bring further visibility to circular economy and renewable energy. But before then, let me get back to Greg. I want you to look at the fears that people are likely to have. You raised an issue for which I drew attention to one particular phrase, reskilling of people. There are those who may be feeling that as a result of circular economy, because a particular product is having an extended lifespan as a result of reuse, refurbish, remanufacture, my skill may not be able to cope with that process again. What exactly can be done to allay the fears of such people and make them know that you are not losing your job, nobody is losing anything?
Thank you very much for that question. It dovetails into the policy of Nigeria right now. There is something called National Policy on Social Security, National Social Security Policy for Nigerian workers. National Social Inclusion Policy that is going to make all the workers not to lose their job because of climate change and just transition. Because of climate change right now, some people that work in some jobs are naturally going to lose their jobs. Then because of circular economy, some other people that are doing some jobs are going to also lose it. So the government has made a policy whereby everybody will be included. And that is where I mentioned that the SDG number 16, it is justice for all. So the government is looking at that justice for all, because we are talking about SDG Goal 7. SDG Goal 7 talks about energy for all. So you can't do energy for all without justice for all. People that are, for instance, that are that are waste disposers, waste collectors, and some other people that are into manufacturing and the raw materials extraction. But there are some communities that get their money from raw material extraction. And because of circular economy, raw material extraction is going to be cut down on, which means these people may be without money and without jobs. It is now left for the paradigm that we are discussing now to secure a just transition for them, whereby these communities will be put into consideration and they will not lose their jobs. Then the others that have jobs that do not measure into the paradigm of circular economy will now do what you talked about: reskilling, retraining, and re-equipping. For instance, in Lagos State, it is the government that will look at this policy and internalize it in all the departments of government and secure the jobs of these people so that they will be included in this transition. Because if they are not included, that is where we are going to have a problem with the societal impact. But let's take it to the next level. You know, we are talking about Nigeria and beyond. The poor nations, they depend on extractive industry. We, for instance, export crude oil, some export gold, some export lithium, cobalt, and some other solid minerals. But now, circular economy is going to cut down on extraction. It's going to make people to use what they have for a longer period, whereby we will not depend on extractive industry as we used to depend on them. So when we talk about Nigeria and beyond, being the leaders in this new paradigm, circularity is a new paradigm. We are going to take the discussion to the next level. Why wouldn't the developed world help the poor nations to internalize circularity? Because the way the world runs, the service industry is the thing that is running the West. America depends on the film industry, on the digital economy, like Facebook, Google, Amazon, gives America more money than raw materials. But we don't make money from service industry. We make money from raw materials. So there is a disconnect, and we are not prepared for the future of circularity, which means there has to be a new paradigm for the poor nations, for the poor societies to be included. And that is what SDGs Goal 16 is talking about. So this discussion is very important to set the agenda, because this is the first discussion in the developed world, in the developing world. The secular hotspot has been in the West. For the first time, it's coming to the developing world. So we are now championing the discussion that the developed world should look at bringing up the poor nations into the secular mix when it comes to sustainability and just transition.
Thank you very much. Mercy, let me get back to you. If you want to clap, you can clap. Please don't hold your clapping. Thank you very much. I would be right to say you are aware that there is a new Power Sector Act.
Yes, sir.
Fine, thank you very much. Now, for that act, it allows, for the first time in several years of the life of this country, it allows the state to generate, to transmit, and to distribute electricity. Now, as a major market participant, is there anything you are doing with Lagos State currently? Because that's your host state. Is there anything you are doing currently with Lagos State that brings a collaboration between you, Lagos State, and the idea of circular economy vis-a-vis renewable energy?
Okay, so I would agree with you, sir. So currently we are partnering with Lagos State. After the act, we went into meetings, engagements with the Lagos State government, to see how we can partner with them. One of it was to discuss plans or whatever it is that we can offer and what they can offer to us as well. So what this invariably means is that we are a socially friendly company. We are available, we are open to the market. Right now, it's being regulated by NEC, or by the power sector. But we are open because it's now a global thing where the company, the nation wants to buy into what Lagos State is doing. And so if Lagos State is ready to go into it, we are ready to partner with it. And that's why we are we are also in engagement or talks with Lagos State for us to have traction in it. So very soon you'll start seeing so many policies in line with that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adaju, I'm coming back to you again. There is a common phrase in town today that is said to be affecting Nigeria: multi-dimensional poverty. Are you getting me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. Nigeria is said to be going through or suffering from what is called multi-dimensional poverty. And one of those strand of the multi-dimensional poverty is energy poverty. Now, my question is this: given circularity and renewable energy, how can these two concepts help to remove energy poverty from the multi-dimensional poverty that we are talking about?
Thank you so much. To build on what the data you just gave now, over 100 million Nigerians are not connected to any form of energy.
Especially, sorry sir, especially in view of SMEs.
SME, yes, MSMEs, right. Okay, so energy access in Nigeria is about 50% of the population, which is, and is worse in rural communities. Secondly, there is a strong push to create energy access for productive use, and this is where circularity and reducing energy poverty comes in. Energy that is used for productive activities. So today we are seeing many grids in very rural communities that are powering productive use, like milling, like solar drying, and some small productive activities. So that's one way of getting, more people out of the poverty trap. We're also saying, for example, how do we build capacity? So you want to install a mini grid or a solar home systems in a very remote community. It does not make any sense for Segun Adaju to send engineers from Lagos to that remote community. What works will be to train people at that remote community that will help you to do the installation and will be around to maintain it. So there's this very strong push for capacity building. And let me also comment on what Greg mentioned. When we got into the renewable energy space, particularly solar, we learned a lot of things from the mobile telephony, how it grew in Nigeria. So mobile telephones was able to grow rapidly in Nigeria because in a rural community, there's somebody that can repair a mobile phone. You don't have to send it from my village in Kaba, Kogi State, to Lagos for repairs. Somebody can repair it there. So we now came up with the idea that, look, why not train people in very remote locations to be able to do this job? For example, renewable energy can create about 25 million jobs between now and year 2030, right? If we go full blast. So I say, train people in those local communities who will be the repairers, who will be the installers, and then you have created jobs, and you are taking them out of the poverty trap. And also, so what would we do? We now said, if telephone can scale rapidly, and what they did then was to train some guys who were repairing, I remember in the computer village then, guys who were repairing computer were now trained to also begin to repair and service phones. So if we are disrupting the space, and some people are likely going to lose their jobs. For example, those who service and maintain generators, we are beginning to train them on how to repair inverters. And, so that means if they are losing job, because gradually they will lose the job, a better past management might begin to exit in Nigeria. And finally, to look at MSMEs. I've been involved in empowering small businesses like barber shops, restaurants, small schools, even in remote communities, with simple solar technology and displacing petrol generators. So you install solar, You give them the opportunity to pay over time, and then they don't use generator again. So that's also helping. We have seen how it has helped SMEs to increase their productivity by 40%, to preserve harvest, post-harvest losses, that's almost 40-50% has been reduced, where almost many grids have been developed in Nigeria. So there's this strong connection between energy, circular economy, and also reducing poverty in Nigeria. And Nigeria has the biggest market potential for this.
Thank you very much. I've been told I have 5 minutes. Maybe it's now 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Greg, as part of your rounding up thought, do you think, okay, 2 questions in one. One is the fact that I know you are a media person. To what extent will media, I mean, what will be the kind of contribution you expect from your colleagues in the media to further push circularity into the front burner? Number 2, do you think we are coming too late, especially in view of the latest price of petrol? Do you think if circular economy had been before now, especially in relation to renewable energy, we will not be crying the way we are crying today about cost of fuel?
Quickly, thank you so much. The media has a lot of work to do because everything rises and falls on leadership. So it's the media that gives the leadership accountable and sets the agenda. It's now left for the media to actually also know the issues. They have to know the issues. There have to be retraining of circularity. There has to be a circularity desk on the media, broadcast and print. Not because you have political desks, you have environmental desks, you should also try circularity or circular economy desks. Secondly, Nigeria, the second question, Nigeria is not coming late at all because this is actually a new sector. Circularity is a new experiment, but the thing is that we have to be very fast if we want to survive. And one suggestion I'm making is that there should be a Ministry of Renewable Energy. It's very late in the day, but we can start now. Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we have peculiarities. We must not look at other countries. We can do our own thing. For instance, look at India that has similar circumstances, many poor people. They have a Ministry of New and Renewable Energy that came from a department on non-conventional energy. So, and they are doing very fast. So we have to do it now. Let me correct something. I almost made a mistake about the name of the policy Nigeria is doing. Okay. It's called National Social Protection Policy. But it's now revised to include, so it's now revised National Social Protection Policy to include the impact of climate change. It's under Ministry of Budget and Planning.
Thank you. I will take that as your closing thought.
Yeah.
Mercy, you want to tell us something as your closing thought?
Okay, I would just like to encourage everyone to embrace the 2060 transition plan. We can do it on or before 2016. So I encourage you to embrace it. So it's also, by embracing it, you're also encouraging the circular economy as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adaju, what do you want to leave with us?
I just want to encourage everyone also to take particular interest in this economy, circular economy. There is actually money to be made in there, while you're also helping the world to save and manage and conserve its resources. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Any contribution from the audience? 1 minute each. I'll take one from here, I'll take one from here. Oh, sorry. I'm unable to do that. Thank you very much. Can I go ahead? Okay. Audience, one from this side, one from this side. The first person to raise up his or her hand. Fantastic. Please rise up, step forward. Somebody from there, somebody from this side. The first person to raise up is, okay, stand up. It's a balanced one. Please rise up. Please stand up, step forward. Can we have an extra microphone? Straight to the point. Is it a contribution or a question?
Probably a bit of both. The engagement of the citizens is central to the success of any of this. And it has to happen at the local government level. The state government has to focus on the regulatory and monitoring aspects, evaluation aspects, but the local government, I didn't see many of them here, have to be the ones that are empowered to engage with the citizens. I hear you talking about media, I hear you talking about other institutions that's going to drive this. It's the people that are going to drive it. So you need to empower them, you need to educate the people, you need to create systems for that engagement. Town hall meetings that is institutionalized. It's not at the whim of anybody. You know that once a month you must meet with your counselor, with whoever it is, the state commissioner, whoever it is, that is responsible to do what? We all live in local governments. We know we don't have systems in place. If you want to recycle, there is no system that recycles. In terms of collecting the waste, shouldn't be rocket science. Somebody should come and collect the waste. If I have waste and I'm walking down the street, I want to throw it away, I should have a place on the road that I can dump it. The system should be in place to clear it. We all go to London, Abby, on Oxford Street. You just drop the thing in some dustbin there, somebody else clears it. So it has to be a collective process for this success. Thank you.
I sincerely agree with you. There was a time in this country, and I'm sure most of us will recall, where the federal government was supervising cleaning of streets. War against indiscipline. Thank you very much.
Systems. Yeah. Let's do it.
So what I'm saying is that the local government she mentioned have a major role to play in this business. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Blessed Lola Saint from Empower Africa Project. I noticed on our discussion, it's been from raw materials and to consumption. Looks like we are omitting the area of production. Why am I saying this? So that it will not be again like our crude oil, that we have the raw materials, we have the crude oil, and we have to depend on the outside the country in getting the product. So I will request that we'll consider like the machine fabrications, the hazard of machine fabrications, and then for some of the companies, because before you talk about taking the raw materials into becoming the circular product as we expected, it does go through the process. So we should take it as a matter of importance along with our processes. How the companies who either are going to, instead of us taking all this out, we should be having all this in the country. The process should be in the country. It means we will need to have more fabricators and other devices that are to be made in Nigeria. It's very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your contribution. On a final note, and as a joke from me, it's only in Lagos that you will be hearing somebody saying ice water tuture. Come and buy cold ice water. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our panelists and the moderator.